Good evening, everyone. It's 5 o'clock, so I'd like to call the October 13, 2020 meeting of the El Segundo Unified School District Board of Education to order. And at this time, I would like to request that Nancy Cobb lead our Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Please stand, place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to report that there was no action taken in closed session tonight. And for our agenda hearing period, I do have some public communications, two subjects of which are not on the agenda, which I will read now. And then we have a number of comments regarding the waiver to apply for the waiver to return our TK through second graders back to a hybrid situation. So I'll read that at the time the board will take action on that item. First set of comments are submitted from the Students for Change. First from Samara Yousefzai. We, the students of El Segundo High School, fully support ESUSD's efforts to promote a truly inclusive learning environment by incorporating a more diverse curriculum and educating us on racial institutions prevalent in our nation. We will emerge from high school as educated, productive, compassionate citizens to meet the challenges of a global society in the 21st century. We do not believe that widening our intellectual scope to include experiences and history of our fellow students of color will create political biases within our classrooms. Instead, we, the students, will be able to formulate our opinions based on a curriculum that extends past an antiquated, whitewashed educational system. Below is a petition created by the club Students for Change, which was signed by 280 El Segundo High School students in support of the board's endeavors for an equitable, inclusive campus. Next, we have comments from Lauren Abercrombie. I am writing as an El Segundo resident to convey my support for the 280 El Segundo High School students petitioning for a more diverse and inclusive curriculum. I truly believe that understanding the full scope of history of people of all backgrounds will make our high school students more well-rounded, compassionate, and engaged citizens and prepare them better for life beyond high school. The next comment is from Tony Michaels. I'm writing to express my family's support of the petition circulated by Students for Change at El Segundo High School. We are heartened by this district's efforts to recognize, welcome, and increase diversity in El Segundo Unified School District schools. And we are proud of the El Segundo High School students who are speaking up and speaking out in support of this cause. The students' passion on this issue should be a rallying cry and motivation to all in our community to support ESUSD's efforts toward diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thank you, school board members, so much for your efforts thus far, and please keep working to move our district forward on these issues. And Tony Michaels is a parent of 3 ESUSD students. Next, Keith E. Puckett. I wanted to voice my support for the We the Students movement. I support the students and the district on their diversity efforts. My son is a freshman at ESHS, and we believe it is important for him and his peers to have classes that help all students understand the importance of diversity. Thank you for all you do. I'm here to support however I can. These comments next are in support for diversity and inclusion. First is from Holly M. Crawford. We write to you today as SMOA staff who are deeply committed to the mission of El Segundo Unified School District to serve the El Segundo community. We applaud and support the school board's efforts to promote diversity, equity, inclusion for all students and staff. Sharing resources that teachers, students, and parents can access to talk about racism and bias are invaluable and necessary. We also appreciate the school board's objective to provide timely professional development for teachers to address bias in the classroom. We believe in the importance of a truly diverse and representative curriculum where all students see themselves and gain a better understanding of the world. We are committed to doing this work with you. Thank you for all that you are doing and continue to do for students and teachers so that we can all live in a truly just world. And then next is from Christabel Vienna to the ESUSD Board of Education and the Superintendent, bravo. Thank you so much for sticking with your stance on diversity, education, and inclusion, and for your commitment to listening to your students and addressing their needs. You all have done an incredible job with distance learning, and with your overflowing plates, we cannot thank you enough for also tackling issues of racism and injustice. Our youth can no longer wait. The time is now for change, and we really appreciate your efforts to make things happen. In order to build a more safe, inclusive, and fair world, it is my hope that ethnic studies and other DEI initiatives will be implemented and required as part of attending ESUSD schools and schools across this country in the near future. As a mother of 2 students of color attending ESUSD schools, I proudly stand with ESUSD and support your efforts to help our children become bright, contributing citizens who stand up for what's right, give back to El Segundo and other communities most in need of support, and lead the way towards change. Thank you. Christabel Vienna, I don't know if it's Vilena or Vienna, is the mother of 2 children. So we thank you for these comments. Moving on in our meeting, we next will hear from Benjamin Villa, our student representative.
Hello, everyone. In place of week, we are having a Spirit Week currently with 3 Spirit Days spread out through Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Yesterday was our first one and had 26% freshman participation, 24% sophomore, 32% junior, 45% senior, and nearly 80% teacher participation. On October 1st, we hosted our first ever virtual trivia night. We had 19 teams signed up with 83 players and nearly 115 viewers on the live stream. Our second virtual trivia night will be held on Twitch on Thursday, October 22nd at 7 o'clock. Ashley Richmond was our October Teacher of the Month, and our Students of the Month were freshman Kristen, sophomore Jeremy, junior Jin Yi, and senior Nick. Our club list was finalized with a total of 45 clubs. Some clubs are meeting currently and have meetings spread out throughout the week. Nearly 250 students signed up for our senior mock election, which was held on October 6th, and we are still encouraging students to sign up for the virtual Skechers Friendship Walk. That's all I got.
Thank you, Ben. Next, we have an update from the El Segundo Education Foundation, and I know Frank Glenn, the chair, is here. So, Frank, if you'd like to unmute yourself, and we welcome your report.
Hi, I'm unmuted, but gosh, can't start my video. It seems to be the problem of the day today, but I'll give my report. Sorry you can't see me. We had a very successful community appeal that finished on October 10th. Big thank you to Chevron for the $75,000 matching grant and to all the parents who pledged their support. We raised $350,000. Coming up, as Benjamin just mentioned, is the Skechers Friendship Walk, and we hope that everybody will sign up for that. Our schools receive a multiplier of the entry fee, so it's a big win-win for us. The more we get signed up, the more money we receive back from the Skechers Foundation. Ladies' Night Out is coming up on November 19th. It will be a virtual event. The show will air on YouTube at 7 p.m. General tickets are $35 and include entry into the raffle. VIP tickets are $50 and include 2 raffle entries, a mask, a special Ed Foundation mask, and choice of beer or wine, and a glass and dessert. So we're hoping that we'll get big community support for that. And finally, I'd want to report that at our El Segundo Ed Foundation board meeting today, we voted to support ESUSD in its effort to seek a waiver from DHS for an early opening of our K through 2nd grade classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate the work of the Ed Foundation, even in these difficult times, to raise money for us. It's incredible. So thank you to everyone in the community for your support.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Next, talking about reopening and waivers, those are our next 2 presentations. So I'm sure those of you listening in will take special note of this. So Dr. Moore, would you introduce our next presentation?
Yes, it's with a great deal of pleasure that I bring forward Dr. Melissa Gooden. On August 25th, Dr. Gooden presented an initial update to the board regarding the youth sports health order from the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. And since that time, and the board expressing interest in this program, a lot of time has been spent in thoughtfully looking at all of the logistics to plan and carry out a limited conditioning plan for our students. During this time, she also went to the Health and Safety Committee for reopening, and that committee also reached consensus that any type of in-person opportunities for our students should absolutely be something that we explore. So I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Gooden.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Moore. I just wanted to first start by saying thank you for letting us explore this opportunity, because it really has given a great sense of just, excitement for our kids and for our community, and we're ready to do this. As Dr. Moore said, we've shared with different committees what our plan has been, and I would be remiss if I didn't share that, our athletic director, Steve Shevlin, our athletic trainer, Katie Osterbecki, and assistant principal, Sarah Devontis, have all been working hard on this plan also. So it really was an Eagle team effort to get this thing going. Next slide. So just as a background, and I shared this with everyone when I presented in August, we've really been looking at 2 different pieces of guidance as we've gone through this, of this planning phase. The first one is the LA County Department of Health guidance, and there's 2 different pieces that we've really been looking at. The first one is the reopening of youth sports, and then the second one is the reopening protocols for K-12 that really talks about cohorting. And finally, the California Department of Health has guidance related to cohorts. Before I get started, I'll say, and I think you guys are well aware of this, that a lot of things contradict each other. So we really had to sort through it to make sure that we came up with, which one was the most, which required the most. So we are erring on the side of caution, and we've always looked at, which was the most restrictive plan, and that's the one that we are going with. Next slide. So I shared this at the last meeting. For LA County, there are really 5 pieces that have to go into any reopening plan. And I know you all have copies of our full plan. I'm going to go over the basics of the plan, but within that attachment has our entire written out plan with exactly what it would look like. Next slide. So in the first plan, which is really student and staff safety, that's looking at, all students are going to have to wear masks when they're with us. All students have to participate in health screenings, and we're really limiting the activities that the kids are able to do. And then also, again, all kids have to be at least 6 feet apart, 8 feet apart if they are doing any heavy breathing. We're erring on the side of caution, and all of our students are going to be 8 feet apart. We're limiting the number of cohorts that we're going to have on a field at a time, really just to make sure that, all kids are safe when they're coming on campus. As far as infection control, we're looking at things like having kids all bring their own equipment, making sure that all equipment, even if the kids bring up their own, that they disinfected after each use. And then really making sure that, we'll see in a further slide how we've staggered our start times to be really, careful to make sure that there wouldn't be too many kids that come together at the same time. I know even as adults, we have this tendency when we see our friends that we haven't seen in a while or teammates, we want to go over and talk to them, but we're really setting it up to make sure that only one group would be entering at a time and that they would stay together, go to their location together, and leave their location together. Next slide. And then finally, the last two parts are, communicating with the public. We will be sharing information with our parents once this plan is approved, making sure that we have appropriate signage in all of our fields and stadiums and locations that we're going to be using around the district. And the other piece of that would just be making sure that everybody has the PPE equipment, and we can thank Ali Rabi'i for that because we are well stocked and ready to go on that aspect. And once this plan is trained, we are planning on having a full training with our coaches, and they all are required to take the training prior to participating in limited conditioning with the kids. Next slide. So for those of you that aren't aware, CIS has sort of changed their sports schedule a little bit. And rather than having 3 seasons, this year there will be 2 seasons. So there's a fall season, and that first fall season technically begins in December. And then our second season begins in February. So if you're familiar with sports at all, you'll see some of the sports are actually mixed up. So like boys volleyball is typically a spring sport, but it's being moved to the fall. And then things like tennis, girls tennis is usually in the spring, but it was moved to the fall. And then like girls water polo is usually in the winter, but that was moved to the spring. So everything got moved around to really put everything into two different seasons, which becomes a little bit of a logistical puzzle when we're putting together a schedule, because that means more kids at one time that would be participating in our program. So at the bottom, you can see what our recommendation would be. And of course, this is subject to everything going correctly and making sure that we're staying safe and that we can accommodate all the kids. We would ask that our first season, which would be our fall sports, would start on October 27th and go through November 20th. Everybody would take a break for that week of Thanksgiving break. And then our second season, we would then introduce in our second group of sports for our spring seasons. And they would begin, it'd be sometime around the beginning of December, as soon as we would have all of the paperwork and everything ready to go with a schedule and coaches trained and so forth. So one of the things that's going to be important for parents and kids to know is right now we are in a very limited conditioning as far as what the kids can do. And we do have a lot of kids that play more than one sport, but unfortunately, just to keep kids safe, at this time, kids have to make a choice. You're either going to do a fall sport or a spring sport. Now, if the guidelines change and it's safe for kids to move amongst cohorts, we would absolutely let kids make a choice. But for right now, they have to choose one sport, and that's the sport that they would be practicing with. Next slide. Oh, and I should have said on the last slide, we're excited to share that the last time we met, band was not included. So actually, LA County has said that now the kids can't practice instruments, but part of band, especially in the fall, is marching band. So kids are going to be able to practice their marching skills in small cohorts of 10 kids or 12 kids or less, I'm sorry. And Allison Davis, our band director, is very excited about that, and they are planning on participating as well. So if you look here, we did an initial survey of parents just to see how many would be interested, and sort of came up with a base number of how many pods we would need. Each one of these pods would have no more than 12 kids and one coach in it. So these are the numbers that we're looking at for number of pods that we would be moving forward with. And this is just for our first season of sports. Okay? And each pod, depending on what the coach was available and how we could allocate field space, would meet either 1 to 2 times each week. Next slide. Okay. So this is just a sample, and these things will change. But what we really want to show here is that we were very strategic about how many groups would be arriving at the same time and not having any groups arriving at the same point at the same time. So staggered start times, kids arrive at certain times, they leave at certain times, which makes sure that they aren't crossing over each other. So if you look like in the 2:45 column, you have a pod coming in for football, and a pod coming for cross country, but football will be coming into the field on the stadium. Cross country will be meeting on Oak Street. So just making sure that as we were putting the schedule together that we weren't crossing kids over. Next slide. Okay. So again, this is just another sample of what this is going to look like as the kids are coming in. We don't have any, we use this sample just so you could see if we had 6 pods that happen to be coming at the same time. We don't have that many. We were able to spread them apart. We are fortunate because we have lighting and we also have other field space that we can use at some of our other sites in the district. So we would only have 1 pod coming in at a time. But the idea is that kids will stop and they'll check in. Once they've cleared and showed that they've done their health assessment, they will go to their pod meeting place to meet their coach, and everybody will move at the same time to their location. And so we have, the way that we're going to have the field sectioned off, there will be no more than 3 cohorts that work on 3 cohorts on a field a day, but at one time there would never be more than 2 cohorts there. So you're talking about 24 kids on each of the fields, 12 and 12. So we're feeling pretty comfortable about the space that we're able to keep in between them as they're doing their limited conditioning. Next slide. Okay. So just a few precautionary measures that that we are taking in addition to what's required in the guidelines from the LA County. Like I said, on Thursday we have a tentative coaches training plan. We are going to have the coaches actually come to go through and look and see where are the meeting spots, what is our signage going to look like, where are we keeping all of these things. So that way when they start that first day, they are aware, ready to go. And then Ali is actually going to be a part of it as well, just to go over what our district sanitizing disinfecting process looks like, what are the supplies they're using, what are the disinfectants that they will be using as coaches. And then so we are going to be using a form that all kids are going to have to fill out prior to, almost like a concert ticket. So you fill out your COVID check sheet that says what your fever or what your temperature is, and if you have any symptoms, you're going to have to show it to one of the monitors before you go into the gate. And then that student will be checked off that they came in. So one of the things that we, and our athletic trainer is going to help us with this as well, but one of the things that we want to make sure is that we know exactly who is on campus each day and who is in each of the cohorts on each day in the event that we had to go back and do any type of contact tracing. And then cohort starting times between 1:45 and 4:45 to make sure we don't have any mixing of kids. And finally, all students are going to have a waiver, or a physical signed, and then all parents are going to have to sign a participation waiver that just says, you know, we're following all these protocols, but you know, we do know that there is some risk involved with kids coming, so just to make sure that parents are aware and can have conversations about kids. And our waiver does also, our participation waiver does say that, you know, we're going to be really zero tolerance. So if kids are not following, they will be immediately sent home for that day. Like, we just don't want to risk any, you know, any unsafe behavior that could lead to any cases, unnecessary cases on campus. Okay. Next slide. Okay. So that's what I have. Does anyone have any questions?
Danny, could you bring them up? Thank you. Any questions or comments from board members? Tracy?
I just want to say thank you for all the work putting into this, because kids sitting around staring at screens all the time and being at their house all the time is getting a little tiresome, as you know. But I appreciate all the thought that you guys had to do this, because I know it's hard to manage space and you know, all those rules that probably still keep changing. And I really appreciate seeing all this work. So thank you.
Well, we're very excited to have kids, to see kids' faces again and just see that field, you know, somewhat filled, not fully filled, but at least to see active kids on there. So we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, Emily.
A bit of a bummer. It just hit, you know, when I saw that kids are going to have to pick their sports. You know, I just think, gosh darn it. So I hope when people are watching this, or when news goes out of this, as I'm sure it will, I hope they realize, again, this is not El Segundo, you know, being overly cautious. This is a mandate that came from CIF and the public health. So, you know, it's such a bummer. It's just the gift that keeps on giving. But, you know, at least, as Tracy said, there is an opportunity coming. So can't be too soon. But I do thank you. I mean, it is hard, and this is it's not just a matter of us deciding to open fields or not. As people, I kind of catching wind in the community. They want us to just open things, which I agree with, and we are working on things. But there is a whole process. Even, you know, as you said, having people check in, because if something was to happen, contact tracing is very important. So thank you. This does not fall under educational services about in any way, but, you know, thank you, and to everyone else that you mentioned working on this, because it will affect our kids.
Just to add to what you were saying, we actually did talk about this, and that, you know, we don't know when CIF could possibly get to a date where they say, you know what, we're going to move fall sports back, or we're not going to do fall sports, we're just looking at spring sports. So if it came down to fall sports not happening, and, you know, kids are still able to condition for spring sports, what would happen would we would have a period of 2 weeks in the middle where kids were not participating in a pod, and then that would allow them to then join into a spring pod. So we do have that in place if that does happen. But for right now, when we're not, you know, December is that first date, kids are going to have to just make that choice of one or the other of which one they're going to participate in.
That's going to be hard for us, for small districts. You know, El Segundo, we have a lot of multi-sport kids, and that's how we field teams. So this is just, when you think you've seen everything COVID could dish out, it surprises me again.
So I would also, I mean, this is just, you know, as I'm reading through and kind of looking at stuff from CIF, if we get to that point where it is going to be safe to have teams playing against other teams where we'd actually be in competition, I would believe that meant that it was safe for a kid to move over to another cohort. So as like as the parameters start changing, if things loosen up a little bit, we would of course change our restrictions as well. But for right now, as we're starting, it's going to be a one team thing.
I would hope that, but I would not bank on anything right now. I would not.
Yes, Nancy.
I'm also glad to see that the marching band is coming back. I know that involves a lot of kids. Do you have any idea how many kids this will be involving between sports and band?
So right now there's 80 kids in band. So it would be 40 that would be on a Tuesday, Thursday. So they would do 4 different cohorts on Tuesday and Thursday. And then the other 40 kids would do a Wednesday, Friday cohort. And then we had almost 300 kids sign up interested in sports for the regular sports schedule. Now that does include like cross country kids who they won't be in one physical location together. That also includes the kids that are on the surf team, and the surf team would meet in the morning. So we're expecting probably on either an A day or a B day, so Tuesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Friday date, we would have about probably 100 kids on the field throughout the day or throughout the time period. So able to keep them still safe, but probably about 100 to 150 on each of the groups.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your presentation, Dr. Gooden. It's exciting news. I'm sure the students are excited about at least getting into conditioning, even if they may not compete. That physical fitness is good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a presentation on the necessary components to apply for the waiver for grades TK through 2. And Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Dr. Nishime. Good evening, President Nishime, members of the board. Mr. Ali Rabihi and I are extremely pleased to provide you an important presentation this evening regarding a new school waiver opportunity specifically for students in transitional kindergarten through 2nd grade. And it's very important to note that the waiver application requirements for this waiver significantly differ than the California state waiver option that I shared with the board at the August 4th board meeting. So I think that's very important going into this presentation to really make note of. Next slide. While Los Angeles County remains in Tier 1, which is the purple color-coded level, and considered widespread community transmission on the state's blueprint for the state's economy, the waiver application contains specific limitations and requirements that were not contained in the California state waiver. And this is because the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors stepped in and provided specific direction to public health to offer a limited waiver application opportunity. What's important to note in this particular situation is that neither the Los Angeles County Office of Education or local superintendents were consulted on the criteria. So this kind of came as a surprise to the educational community. However, that being said, as superintendent of El Segundo Unified, I welcome any opportunity that our school district has that will allow our students, faculty, and staff to return to school safely. Next slide. So let's kind of do a deep dive here and take a look at the limitations of this County Board of Supervisors school waiver. The application is directed by the Board of Supervisors, and thus it is divided into 5 supervisory region areas that it will be considered. So El Segundo falls under Supervisor Janice Hahn's area, which includes 458 square miles, 27 cities, 16 unincorporated areas, and parts of the city of Los Angeles. I worked with Ali Rabihi today, and we did a rough estimation, and at a minimum, there are approximately 220 elementary schools and close to 20 school districts, not counting private schools, that potentially could apply for a waiver. A waiver application is not considered by school district, but it is considered by individual school. You submit your application, and it is divided by the supervisory district. So Supervisor Barger would have all of hers, Supervisor Hahn would have all of theirs, and each supervisor would have their individual stack to be considered within competition of their area. Then the applications are prioritized by schools with higher percentages of students on free and reduced lunch. This week we've done an initial data analysis of our 2 schools that we're considering, and Center Street currently is at 10.1% free and reduced lunch, and Richmond Street is at 9.7%. So it's less than 1% difference between the 2. In addition, they are requiring letters of support from specific groups. So for El Segundo Unified, that would include El Segundo Teachers Association and our California School Employees Association, our CSEA chapter. So we have had informal discussions with our labor partners, and we have tremendous positive relationship with our labor representatives, and we continue to work on a variety of issues related to the impact on education, working conditions, and our students and staff as it relates to anything related to the COVID-19. We also would need to get a letter of support from both of the parent-teacher organizations for each one of those schools. In addition, they are recommending community organization letters of support. So as mentioned this evening, we are very grateful El Segundo Education Foundation voted today to write a letter of support on behalf of their community organization. And in addition, I've reached out to the City of El Segundo and the El Segundo Chamber of Commerce and requested letters from them. And then certainly the initial application letter comes from the district superintendent. Next slide. So really, over the next week and a half, we really need to take time to meet, listen, engage, and seek solutions. So we're gathering data at this time from both Dr. Monahan and Dr. Lee regarding the number of students who specifically would return to school because those parents have signed up for the hybrid program. We would meet and present to our parent-teacher organizations at each of the elementary schools. And we're also going to consider lessons learned from other school districts. So at this time, we've done a survey of our parents, so we really want to take a look at our survey and find out from our parents what was working for them, what doesn't work, because this is truly an opportunity to say, all right, if students are returning to school and teachers are returning to school, and we can only return half of the students at any one time, is there a schedule or is the schedule that we have working that will allow logistically the teacher to meet all students' needs? We have received feedback from our parents of our youngest children, specifically kindergarten, first, and second grade, that have talked about some of the challenges with too much screen time. So we really want to take that into consideration and also see, is there a way to have greater levels of continuity for our kids? So we really have gone back to our reopening committee, and Ms. Janicek will be chairing them in a meeting next week to look at schedule options to make sure that we're going to have both a situation for our students that will enable their success as learners and also a schedule that would enable our teachers to logistically manage two groups of students. Our goal would be, and this is our goal, to meet with all the appropriate stakeholders and complete and submit the application no later than the week of October 26th. At this time, then, I'd like to turn it over to Ali Rabihi, our Director of Operations and COVID Compliance Officer, who has done an outstanding job on addressing all things COVID, health, and safety. Mr. Rabihi.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Members of the board, it's a pleasure to discuss this aspect of the waiver process, namely the health and safety features. And I know in previous board presentations, I have shared many of the health and safety aspects that we've been exploring and implementing, but it's great to actually frame it around the possibility of opening up our one or more of our campuses. So as far as the health and safety piece goes, it is very important to note over and over again that we must and we are required to follow the protocol set forth by the LA County Department of Public Health. And those protocols are constantly being updated with new aspects, and we're constantly staying abreast of these updates so that we have everything in place. The first part, we've heard this over and over again, also in the media, it's the physical or social distancing. What does that mean exactly for our schools? That means the separation of student desks that are 6 feet apart. There is the chance of in various classrooms, and we have seen that to date, that the space does not allow for the 6-foot separation. In those instances, we have brought forth partitions that have been established to allow for that separation between and among students. And also the floor stickers that you have probably seen if you've been to our campuses that remind individuals of where to stand to maintain that separation. Also, enacting measures to promote healthy hygiene. What does that mean? Working with our new sanitizing, disinfecting provider, service provider, Ecolab, in every classroom having hand sanitizers, an actual hand sanitizer dispenser in each and every classroom as well as in offices. Also employing our portable hand washing stations throughout the campus. And I think the most important piece behind healthy hygiene is those reminders of what healthy hygiene and proper hand washing exactly means. And so having signage in restrooms, by sinks, at our portable hand washing stations, just reminding both students and staff how to properly wash their hands. Then the implementation of student health screening. We have had the privilege of seeing what health screening looks like with the opening of our TLC program. Every single staff member, we have ordered perhaps the highest number of contactless thermometers to deploy to our staff to conduct those health screenings of students. Essentially what that looks like is upon arrival to a campus, a student's temperature is checked, followed by a series of CDC questions. The LA County Department of Public Health has put out what they call their decisions pathway document that outlines exactly what staff needs to do step by step when conducting that proper health screening. As far as our employees are concerned, we have deployed a web-based app through our Gmail suite where every day employees go on either their phone or on their personal device, home computer, office computer, and answer a series of questions which includes their temperature to indicate whether or not they're healthy to come to school that day. And instructions then follow of who to contact, their supervisor namely, should the answers indicate that they should perhaps stay home and not come to school that particular day or not come to work that day. Our effective sanitizing, cleaning, and disinfecting processes, we have had our custodians and our M&O teams in action with these new processes of exactly what is the most effective way to clean, to sanitize, and disinfect. We basically are mirroring what the CDC has put out in their guidelines, coupled with, of course, what the LA County Department of Public Health has indicated. Not to mention the use and utilization of our new devices for cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting, which our custodians at all sites have already had a chance to utilize. And then the past travel. It is very important to note that the cross-contamination of individual students and staff, mitigating that is critically important. And one way to do so is to make sure that there's proper passive travel, knowing which direction to go and which direction not to go. We have a two-story building, the upstairs stair hall versus the downstairs stair hall. All that can be done with both directions and signage. It's very important that there is no intermingling or cross-mingling, if you will, of staff or students. And then the last piece, which is very important, is providing all of our students and our staff with the personal protective equipment that are known as PPEs that they need to be safe and healthy, and of course to leave school safe and healthy each and every day. And we have deployed that across our campuses with the start of the school year and have them in our arsenal once students are ready to come back to our schools. Next slide, please. So speaking of the personal protective or PPEs that we have, first let me go ahead and mention what staff has been provided. Face covering, a minimum of cloth face covering. We've also provided our staff with face shields, personal hand sanitizer, nitrile gloves, both sanitizing wipes and disinfecting wipes. And recently we were able to secure face drapes. So all of our staff have access to a face drape should they prefer to have that. Additional PPEs, as I mentioned, face drapes, but we also have plexiglass dividers and virus guards. You've probably seen those in our offices for any staff member, particularly front office staff, who may like to have that for their extra added protection. And gowns and aprons, we also have those at our disposal. Some of the infection control supplies that we have at our staff, we do have our contactless thermometers, but we have a station at every single office at our schools. Should a staff member suddenly feel ill and want to do a quick assessment of their health, there is actual kit there with medical grade masks, a contactless thermometer, instructions for them to quickly do a health screen to determine what are those next steps for them. Working with our HVAC service provider, a recently renewed contract with Siemens Industry, Inc., increasing the frequency of those HVAC filter changes. And you've seen, of course, our 2 tents. We're still waiting for our 13 additional tents, which will be arriving soon. Tent space, outdoor space, utilizing that outdoor space. More and more research has shown outdoor space is the way to go to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. And we took full aim at making sure that we had those. I wanted to make a quick mention about one of the pieces of the PPEs here that's very important, and that is that of the face mask or the face covering. At minimum, all students and staff must be wearing a face covering. while at school. The exceptions, of course, include while eating or drinking, if they're in a sport, while swimming or engaging in physical excursion, as Dr. Gooden mentioned in her presentation. But it is going to become part of our school vernacular, if you will. It will essentially become part of the dress code, and who knows how long it will be here to stay, but it is something that we'll be expecting for our students. And one of the added side effect positive byproducts of face coverings is that it can signify a message. You could have an image on it. That's why we moved forward and secured masks that had school logos to promote that school pride, or the ESUSD logo. So there are these added positive effects of face covering, but the most important piece of all is when wearing that face covering, and we're going to stress this to our students as we always have done to our staff, it is for your health and safety and the health and safety of those around you. So it is going to become part of the school culture of our country for years to come. Next slide, please. Investigation and outbreak. The LA County Department of Public Health, as an appendix to the protocol for school reopening, has included a detailed exposure management plan. What does that exactly refer to? That basically discusses what to do should there be a positive laboratory verified case of COVID-19 at school, whether it be a student or a staff member. And there are clear directions of exactly what needs to be done. In a nutshell, what does that mean for us? That means that that particular case or individual who has succumbed to a verified case of COVID-19, they need to go home. Or if they are working at home, they need to stay home and quarantine and follow those explicit instructions that we will be providing to them on how to go about quarantining. Then we implement the District COVID-19 Compliance Task Force, which of course is comprised of myself, but also Dr. Dylan Ferris, overseeing human resources, Dr. Jack Plotkin for student services, and Ms. Roxanne Vollmer, our school district nurse. We then secure the location or locations of the confirmed case, whether that's a classroom or an office space. We have a dedicated M&O and custodial team on hand with equipment in our vehicles, our M&O vehicles, to be dispatched to the location for a full sanitizing and disinfecting process of that location or locations. That needs to be done. And then working with either Dr. Ferris with adult situations or Dr. Plotkin with student situations, contact tracing is then immediately conducted. There's a series of questions that the LA County Department of Public Health has put out to determine who is considered an exposed individual to a positive case. And those questions are then asked of individuals as part of our contact tracing method with recommended next steps for those particular individuals. Next slide. Testing. It is important, and the county has mentioned this in the protocol, that we conduct surveillance testing. We have a plan in place. We have spent the past several weeks looking and exploring at several plans that are out there. What surveillance testing essentially entails is making sure that you have either randomly selected or selected by some means a number of your employees to go about and make sure that they have COVID-19 testing. This surveillance testing is one measure that research has shown that will curb the spread of COVID-19, not just within your district, but also just within the entire community. Any persons on the campuses who exhibit symptoms or who are deemed to have potential exposure will be directed to seek testing. Now, our staff who have employer-provided insurance plans are directed to seek testing through their medical provider. Anybody with a Blue Cross Anthem or Blue Cross HMO can test at a CVS. Any individuals who do not have insurance, information from the LA County Department of Public Health will be provided to them. There's locations of test centers near El Segundo where they can go about and make sure that they get that proper testing to find out what the result is. And so all the information will be provided to staff and also to families should they have any questions as well. Next slide, please. Back to Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Abihi. It's important to note, Board, that the district is required to have a plan for surveillance testing, but they have yet to say you have to enact the plan. So we just need to have a plan in place. As it relates to the waiver approval process, So if we were to submit the week of October 26th, at the end of the week, the Department of Health confirms receipt. They then take the application and sort it by supervisory district. Then they prioritize by the higher percentages of students qualifying for free lunch, and they consult with Department of Public Health, and they review, and the decision could take 2 to 3 weeks. So we would be potentially in a review process for the week of the November 2nd, 9th, and 16th. The week of November 23rd is our scheduled break and also the Thanksgiving week. So the best case scenario here, the best case scenario would be a potential return date of November 30th. However, there is no guarantee that applying leads to approval. The good news in this time frame is that Richmond Street Window Project will be definitely completed because we're looking at the first week in December. Classrooms will be fully cleaned and set up, and there will be time allowed for our teachers to return to their classrooms at Richmond Street. And then it will also then, if we were to go with that week and we were actually approved in the best case scenario, it would allow our children 3 weeks of hybrid in-person instruction prior to the scheduled winter break. And that's a great opportunity to assess, you know, how did this work out? Are there any other additional things that we need? And that we have a 2-week break to obtain anything else if we felt that there needed to be any change in the plan. Next slide. So the possibility exists that we could get waitlisted. Because they're dividing the 30 approvals amongst the 5 supervisors, that means that potentially Janice Hahn's area would only be permitted 6 approvals a week. So if you think about 220 elementary schools potentially in this area, and you add on private schools, you know, there's a lot to compete against. Each week, you are prioritized again based on your free and reduced lunch. And then just because you applied the week of October 26th doesn't mean somebody who comes in with 90% free and reduced lunch but don't apply until November 16th, they're going to move to the front of the stack. So there's definitely the potential there, and Public Health made it very clear to superintendents on our weekly call that we could get waitlisted for an unknown amount of time. Why apply? Because El Segundo's case rate is low. El Segundo Unified has followed all the protocols. We successfully offered a 3-week summer day camp with TLC. We are currently offering full day care for EGWIT Care and TLC, and that's taken place for 6 weeks. So we have 9 weeks of evidence that we can look at, and I commend Guadalupe Grijalba and Denise Escuna for doing a phenomenal job, as we've had not a single case of COVID-19 in the TLC program. So that is 9 weeks of being clear, and that shows that what we're doing is working. Can we give 100% guarantee? No, this is COVID-19, and we cannot give 100% guarantee. But it is showing that if you use your face mask, if you socially distance, if you take advantage of being proactive and temperature screening and taking all of the mitigating measures, you can maintain health and safety of your staff and your students. I'm confident we can bring students back safely, and our efforts are more likely to be successful when done incrementally. as a school district, we really need to do whatever we can possibly to expand opportunities for our students to return to our schools. I've heard from parents and that distance learning has been especially challenging for our youngest learners. You have 5-year-olds who have naturally, just based on their age, short attention spans. You have maybe technology challenges. You have distractions that they naturally go and look at. And people only want so much screen time. So those are all factors that we need to consider. As we look forward, there is one key pitfall that really exists in this equation. The applications are done by school. So what is the potential pitfall? In this case, although very small, Center Street School has a slight advantage of being selected over Richmond Street School based on their free and reduced lunch count, although that's still extremely low in comparison to many schools that surround us. But the chance exists that Center Street School could be one of the 6 in Janice Hahn's supervisory district that would get approved, and Richmond Street would remain on the waiting list. So that is one consideration the board needs to think about. We do want to take this as an opportunity to refine our practices moving forward. If the board approves the El Segundo High School plan, El Segundo student cohorts would return the week of October 26th for conditioning. We are working actively with our Teachers Association, and we are very close to scheduling special ed assessments. That's our next step. So we're stay tuned. We look forward to having a clarity on that timeline soon. We also look in the next couple of weeks that we can also bring our small groups of students for specialized services back. So the other consideration, of course, is what if LA County moves to the red tier and we meet the minimum requirement to allow to return to in-person instruction? So even with 2 weeks in the red tier, two consecutive weeks where LA County remains in the red tier, for schools to reopen, we actually have to go 4 weeks. So it's actually an entire month of no turning back at all, with all red and low caseloads that entire month. So that concludes our presentation, and then this will be an action item 6C for your consideration this evening. But Mr. Rabihi and I are happy to take any questions that the board may have at this time.
Any board member have a question or comment?
I just can't believe it's a whole lot of work, and then hurry up and wait again is really what we're looking at here, right? I mean, you get in that queue, and once again, our district with the status that we have, which we're grateful to have, of our, our special needs students, will keep us on the list longer. So I appreciate all this work, and everybody's going to have to be patient as we keep moving forward as much as we're allowed to move forward. That's probably the one message people need to hear: be patient. So we'll be patient.
Thank you.
Paulette, unmute yourself, and then can you unmute yourself and make your comment? Unable to. Oh, there you go.
There we go. Okay. Did I do that or did you do that?
I did. I don't know if Danny did, but go ahead.
Okay. So, okay, it's kind of disappointing to hear that we're going to be on this waiting list and it gets shuffled every week. That's or every 2 weeks or whenever. That's disappointing. But if the county, make sure I understand this. If we're in the purple now, if we move to red and we stay there, the waiver doesn't matter. We can open our schools?
After a month, yes. Schools in Orange County are open right now. if the district so chose to do so. And so we're really looking at what's working in Orange County and what can we learn from them as well to make the situation the best possible. So yes, that is correct. And I can't stress enough how these rules keep changing. I think I mentioned today in a meeting with the Ed Foundation, you know, I think sometimes from a perception of just someone looking from the outside in, they may think, well, why aren't you preparing for this like 2 weeks ago when you know a waiver is a possibility? We're not preparing for something because every single time the rules change. And so these rules are totally different than what I prepared August 4th. And you have to stop at ground zero and recalibrate everything for these specific rules. So I appreciate you acknowledging that. And hopefully that answered your question, Member Claudette.
It did. Thank you so much. And I appreciate all the work you're going through. Oh, my gosh. Okay, here we go.
Thank you. Emily Lane?
I want to correct a little bit. I think the most important thing that the community needs to know is that every time there has been a possibility, the district has moved towards it. Now, it keeps changing, and we keep changing. And so I kind of heard some else kind of scuttlebutt of why isn't the district applying for this? It's not open yet. I don't, just because the news starts talking of one doesn't mean it's open. It is not open yet. So as you, hopefully people are listening, we are prepared, we are ready, and we will continue to be ready. I think it is very important. I've been saying forever that it really worries me, the learning and the social, emotional piece of these kids, how much is going on. And COVID is dangerous. COVID isn't a death sentence. For some it is, and that's what we need to be prepared for. I think if we are to possibly soon open, there is a chance we will get a case or two. It's just, no matter how good Mr. Rabii and our staff and everyone cleans and sanitizes, it is COVID. So I think the community has to be prepared for that and to be thoughtful of that. But that risk still does not outweigh the learning and the emotional aspect that's going on with these kids right now. So I for one, am all about this. There's a right way to do it. We're not going to just everyone come back and let's go for it. But, you know, when I say this, and when I see banks open and I see grocery stores open and I see shopping going on and I see restaurants opening, it drives me nuts that our students are not back. You know, there's a lot of people working in this environment, and employers are figuring out how to do it safely, and I know we will do that. I think this massive presentation shows El Segundo's commitment to doing our best. Is it going to be perfect? Probably not, but it is well thought out and planned, but we've got to get our kids back. We just have to. I do not understand how you can fly on airplanes and go on trips and go do everything else in this world right now that you can, and our kids aren't back. I can't. So thank you for all that we're doing and staying on top of the requirements, because I do know that the second the waiver is available, even with the changing, we're adjusting and we'll be ready.
Thank you. I did have one question. Oh, before I ask my question, Member Cobb, go ahead. Unmute yourself first.
Thank you for the reminder. I'm also pleased to see that we are making progress and we're close to scheduling those special ed assessments. I think that our special ed population has been very concerned and patient, and now that looks like it's coming and will be the next thing that we actually see happen. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I'm curious in terms of the number of approvals per week Is that because the Department of Public Health has to come and inspect your site? Because 30 per week seems like a very insignificant number of approvals given the large number of elementary within LA County. So, know the reason why it's such a small number?
You know, I think we were all baffled. This came to a surprise to the educational community. We actually, the Los Angeles County Office of Education had put together a small task force of superintendents to begin talking about a gradual reopening as it related to moving forward. I was requested to be on that task force. So we scheduled 4 meetings, and our first meeting was last Tuesday. And of course, the Board of Supervisors took this action on September 29th without consulting the educational community at all. So no one knew. No one knew what is the reasoning for 30. Where did this come from? What's the rationale? And then I appreciated Clerk Lane's comments, because although they voted on it on September 29th, the waiver application wasn't even available until a week ago. So we got right on it. And of course, this is our first board meeting since the waiver application became available. So I'm sorry, President Nishimi, I don't have any rationale. I think because they're in the purple, they still wanted to be prudent as it related to the number, but 30 to me is pick a number. I don't know what that rationale is.
Okay. Well, they sprung this on us. I suppose they can change the rules, and if the public would like to put pressure on the County Board of Supervisors, that is where the pressure should be applied, because they're the ones that invented this 30 number and all these new rules that we now have to follow. And I agree with Emily. You know, I feel like kids and schools are not being prioritized. It's great to see businesses open, but what could be more important than educating our children? And children need to be in school so parents can go to work. So I don't understand the, well, from my understanding at that Board of Supervisors meeting, they were voting on opening card clubs and casinos and different things. And so they felt like, well, we need to do something for schools too. And it's just, there seem to be mixed priorities there. So anybody in the community that would like to put pressure on the Board of Supervisors, please do so.
Yeah, I really appreciate you clarifying that. These are not made-up rules by El Segundo Unified School District. We want our students back. Obviously, the board will be voting on this action on item 6C, and I think based on the comments this evening, you can see where we all lie. So anyway, we appreciate any support.
Thank you. Moving on to our consent agenda, we have consent agenda items A through O. Dr. Moore, is there anything that should be noted in any of these? I think they're all pretty routine.
Yes, they're all routine.
Okay. Is there any item that anyone would like to be pulled for separate vote? Yep. Then I would like to entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items A through O. A move by Nancy Cobb, seconded by Tracy Miller-Zarnicki. Any discussion? Okay, then roll call vote. Benny, your vote, please.
Aye.
And Paulette Caudell?
Yes. Aye.
Okay. Nancy Cobb?
Aye.
Emily Lane?
Aye.
And Tracy Miller-Zarnicki?
Aye.
Aye from me, so consent agenda passes 5-0. Next, moving on to our action items, acceptance of gifts. Emily, if you could read those, please.
Yep. With the Board of Education Policy 3290, we may accept gifts as long as there's no conflict. We have 2 gifts tonight, one from 1800shields.com. Face shields valued at $425 to Richmond Street Elementary School that hopefully we will be using soon. And Big 5 water cliff bars valued at $672 district-wide. Seeing no conflict and all those things are really needed right now, I move approval.
Right. Seconded by Tracy Miller-Zarnicki. And we'll do no comments or questions. Usually we don't get material donations. It's more monetary, but we really appreciate those material donations as well. So thank you to our community.
Well, the thing right now, a lot of these things are hard to find and get. So sometimes these things are better than monetary right now.
True. Benny, your advisory vote, please.
Aye.
Paulette?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
And Emily?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Aye from me. So item A is passed 5-0. Next, moving on to item B, we heard a presentation on this to offer limited outdoor high school sports conditioning on campus. Motion to approve, please. Moved by Tracy Miller-Zarnicki, seconded by Nancy Cobb. Any discussion on this item? Dr. Moore.
Yes, I'd just like to clarify for those parents that might be watching that this is an example of a health order that does not have all those requirements. So there is no letter of support. There is no all these different hoops you have to go through to allow this to happen. So there is the chance that this is going to be the first thing that happens for kids because Dr. Gooden has a plan in place that would start October 27th. And so we'll continue to work with pursuing all of the various necessary steps to move forward with the other items as well. But did want to make note of that so parents aren't confused.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe sports has more clout than in-person education. Who knows? Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this item? All right, then Benny, your advisory vote.
Aye.
Paulette?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Emily? Can you unmute yourself, Emily?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
And aye from me. So we will move forward with our sports conditioning. Yay. Next, we have a motion to an action to approve our application for the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health waiver for TK through second. And I have a few public comments on that item, so I'll read them now before we proceed with our action. From Julie Cohen, if we are able to apply for a waiver, what is the plan to reopen RSS for in-person hybrid learning given the current window construction situation? I understand we are being told that construction will be done by November, and it is unlikely a waiver would be approved by then. However, construction is notoriously late. Is there a plan to use other spaces if a waiver is submitted and RSS is still not open due to construction? For example, could we start prepping some El Segundo High School classrooms for RSS students to use? From Jameen Griffith, as a parent to 2 CSS students, 1 in the 1st grade, I'm strongly in favor of getting the hybrid program kids back to school ASAP. From Kate Boand, I strongly feel the schools should be reopened. The children need the learning, they need the socialization, and they need the routine. I think the long-term effects of this closure are hurting so many children. El Segundo cases are almost at 0. Even if they weren't, we as parents should be allowed that choice of the classroom. I would like to encourage you and the school board to apply for the waiver to reopen our school. Thank you for your time. From Tom and Erica Stevens, for the mental health and well-being of our children, please complete and apply the waiver for RSS, CSS to reopen. It seems that we should do this first, get the approval we need, and in the meantime, create any forms or discussions about if we should reopen. Having that option is always going to be a good thing. If, as a community, we decide we do not want to take advantage of reopening, so be it. In our opinion, it should absolutely be an option. So doing anything necessary to open that door is important. Thank you for your time. The final comment is from Heather Sutherland. Every morning my kids wake up and they used to have their shine in their eyes while getting ready for school. Luckily, I still see their shine, but in a different way. When I decided to have my two youngest children be full distance, I thought I could do it all. I mean, I can do a lot, but being their teacher is not a thing I can do. The amount of respect I have for teachers at Center Street School and everywhere goes beyond words. Words don't amount to the gratitude I have for selfless people that teach my kids and mold them to be amazing little people and turn them into incredible young adults. With this being said, I respect teachers being scared to possibly come back and teach in person to students. But I do know that there are teachers that won't allow fear to take them away from their passion. I have a first grader that is well behaved and resilient, but I have a sixth grader with a 504 plan and he needs constant help and redirecting. I also have a sophomore that is on the hybrid curriculum, and I see how hard the teachers are trying to create a normal environment. So if there is anyone to be able to see all avenues of this pandemic and what it does to kids of all ages, it's me. My little guy needs to not have so much computer time, but I do think our teacher, Mrs. Dawes, has made every time he logs on exciting. My sixth grader needs one-on-one help with his reading and has made every time he my sixth grader needs one-on-one help with his reading comprehension, which he will not get unless he's able to get back to school. If there's any way that we can allow our children to go back to school in a safe manner, I say we fight as hard as we can. Our main goal is safety, but our next in-line goal is kids going back to learning from the people with a passion to mold their minds. Thank you so much to everyone who supplied their comments. So we've had quite a bit of presentation on this item, so I'd like a motion to approve item C. Moved by Tracy Miller-Zarnicki, seconded by Emily, did I get that right? Moved by Tracy Miller-Zarnicki, seconded by Nancy Go. All right, any further discussion on this item regarding the waiver for TK to second?
I just want to hurry up and get that in before they change the rules again. That's all.
Okay. Any other?
I did want to thank Ed, for meeting today. That is a big part. As I was reading articles and things on the website, the supervisor having, the different pieces that we talked about. I know Dr. Moore said she reached out to the city and Chamber of Commerce. Sounds like we have Ed's ready, and we need our two unions letters also. So I'm thankful to Ed that is out there, that one can be checked off. I'm sure the rest will soon follow. As Heather Sutherland said, fear is real, and I understand that. But as she pointedly said, these kids need everyone back, and they need their teachers, their administrators. They need to be taught, especially as Nancy said earlier. Our special ed population. That just, that is, if you think having kids is rough, kids with special needs is even harder. And these poor parents trying to do all that also without education training and on these things, it kills me right now. And we've got to get back. Whatever this takes, whatever forms, I'll change all the time. And let's just keep doing this. We've got to get our kids back. So thank you, and hopefully we can get all the other letters that we need quickly so that we can submit quickly.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote. So, Benny, your advisory vote?
Aye.
Paulette?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
And aye from me. 5-0. So we will move ahead in our application for the waiver. Next, item D is a resolution 09-2020-21 in support of the Southern California Regional Occupational Center, also known as SoCal ROC. And I believe we have a little video that we will watch before we make a motion on this item.
Yes, as Danny Gowna cues up the video, this item is brought to you forward by Member Cobb. She is our board representative on SoCal ROC and also serves as the president of SoCal ROC Board. So this was a feature, it's just 2 minutes in length, that was done by Spectrum News. Really well done regarding SoCal ROC and the program there. We can start the video. Thank you.
Welding is just one of the courses they teach at the Southern California Regional Occupational Center. I'm Parker Collins in Torrance, where this school is afraid for its future. He's learning by doing. Jeffrey Giovenco is in a Welding 1 class. He's a high school graduate looking for his way in life.
I feel like it'll be a good career path. If I don't choose to go career path-wise, it would be a good tool to have on my belt. It's fun to learn.
Only classes for essential careers have returned in person at the Southern California Regional Occupational Center. SoCal ROC is a technical school where high schoolers and adults can come, take classes, and walk into an entry-level job. Jennifer Algori is studying dental assisting. She tried a traditional 4-year school, and when that didn't work out, she weighed her alternative schooling options. The deciding factor was price.
I don't think I would have been able to really try out my interest in the dental field if it weren't for this school.
Superintendent Dr. Atlas Hilaire says the school is running out of money. 6 nearby school districts pay to send high schoolers to SoCal ROC, yet high schoolers are not allowed on campus due to the pandemic. So that means almost all the money is coming from adults like Jennifer and Jeffrey, paying enrollment fees. And the number of students and courses are dwindling.
We've had to basically continuously try to prove our worth, showing people that this program is worth being here and is very valuable for the students.
If the school shuts down, Hilaire says the future of the property and all the expensive equipment is uncertain, and students might have to drive a long way to find similar programs. As he inches closer to his true calling, it would be a setback for Jeffrey.
I can't really put it into words. I don't know. I'm just starting out, so I mean, it's hot as heck out here, so you really have to be dedicated.
For a technical school in trouble, time is money, and it's ticking away fast.
All right, at this time, I'd like to turn it back over to Board President Nishime.
So, Member Cobb, do you have any information that you'd like to provide to the board before we take action on this item?
Yes, thank you. We've had 2 workshops in the last month to discuss what we need to do going forward because we have these financial challenges. And one of the things that our members decided first was that we needed to find out if we have the support of our 6 JPA districts. That's El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, Redondo Beach, Palos Verdes, Torrance, and Inglewood. We also need to expand and rebrand the adult program because that's currently bringing in a lot more money than the high school programs. We want to start a nonprofit so we can expedite grant applications. And we need to continue to explore alternative funding. For example, a possible partnership with El Camino, which now seems that could be a possibility again because they're having an election. They're going to be electing 2 new members to their board and also in search of a new president. But any ideas would be welcome. In terms of the support, I just want to give you an update on what's happening right now. And I first want to compliment El Segundo Unified because even though we are the very smallest of those 6 districts, we currently have, with COVID-19 and distance learning, 20 El Segundo Unified students enrolled. We have a total population of 2019 of 3,453 students in the district. In contrast, Manhattan Beach has 17 students enrolled, and they have nearly double our student enrollment, 6,583 last year. Palos Verdes Unified, 16 enrolled. Total enrollment in their district, 11,217. Redondo Beach has 16 students. Total enrollment in their district, 10,041. Torrance has 6 students at Scrock, and the enrollment in their district last year was 23,375. Inglewood, with an enrollment in their district of 11,542, is sending no students to Scrock. So you can see that with the member districts, we saw that we had a problem and a challenge. So we wanted to take this resolution out to all of the members of our GPA to see if the districts are committed to Scrock, to the future of Scrock, and to finding a solution. A lot of the high school districts thought that the high school district was supporting Scrock, but that's really changed, as we found out when we had a study done last year. Currently, there are 17 courses running at Scrock, 203 adults, and 76 high school students. So you can see that the adult population at this point is more than double that of the high school population. So we do want to find out first, because the JPA is the controlling body, and that's the 6-member school districts. We've taken a lot of community flack in El Segundo that we're not providing career tech vocational programs. And we are. We have never stopped providing those programs because El Segundo Unified has always consistently supported our students who want to get that kind of training at SoCal Rock, otherwise known as Scrock if you've been around for a while. And very often the courses that they take are the beginning of a pathway that they can continue as adults. And as adults, that pathway leads to certifications, which lead to employment. We know that considering COVID-19, a lot of students and adults are considering what they're going to be doing going forward regarding employment. SoCal Rock has tried and true programs. They were considered to be the gold standard of vocational training in the state of California. However, as we see on this resolution with the restructuring of state aid, now we have to struggle and figure out another way to financially support this institution going forward. We feel like it is an extremely valuable addition to our community and to our students. And I want to just thank the administration and all the counselors at El Segundo High School for letting our students know that these options exist, because some districts have not bothered to do that. So we're going to take this resolution out to all of the districts and ask them, hey, are you committed to this? Can we make this work going forward? So I really appreciate that we're considering the resolution tonight, even though it's really like, preaching to the choir, because El Segundo has stayed involved and we have continued to support SoCal Rock. So thank you, and I do hope you continue to support it tonight. If you have any questions, though, I did bring some more material. I would try to answer them. Thank you.
All right. I'd like a motion, and then we can have further discussion if necessary.
I'll move approval.
And moved by Emily Lane, seconded by Nancy Paulette Caudell. So, comments, questions?
I have one question for you, Nancy, and a comment too. I'll start with my comment. A couple years ago when I was president, this is when this started to shift. The money really used to go straight to SoCal Rock from the state, and then they shifted things to go through the districts, and it's really disappointing that a lot of the districts are seeing that as an opportunity to keep the money in their district, and they're kind of running their own programs. and so then they get to keep that money, and that's not the purpose. I shouldn't say that. I think if they could offer the same quality as SoCal Rock, who am I to judge? But having toured the facilities and knowing the equipment and the things that they have, I don't think it's possible for districts to provide that. And that's a lot of times in the community, I get the, when wood shop, we closed that, the automotive shop, I get those, how dare we close those things? And I immediately tell them, a welding machine, a dentist chair, those things are really expensive. And the technology is changing so much that it really doesn't make sense for everyone to do their own in the South Bay. Look at this wonderful facility that we have that can stay state of the art and serve so many. And so we have not given up on those things. I think there was just a better model presented. Unfortunately, districts got a hold of the budget of those and are choosing different things, and it's just really unfortunate because Rock is state of the art. The equipment they have, their facility is amazing. So that's my comment. I think El Segundo is, as Nancy said, our counselors still make sure that option is talked about. We have busing that takes the students. We are committed to this. I hope the community understands that. My question, Nancy, as we're talking about a waiver and things like that is, SoCal Rock is smaller classes and different ability-wise. Is there a possibility of students being allowed back at SoCal Rock sooner than maybe a general population high school?
We're definitely working on it, but let me give you a however. High school age students, we have to follow the same county rules at this point. However, as soon as they turn 18, then they could enroll in the adult classes, which are open if they're for essential workers. And of course, a lot of SCROC's classes are for essential workers, so they can continue. And we're continuing to look for more partnerships with industry to train the people that they need. So we have one that we have just recently approved to add to the electrical training program. Yes, we had a program that was really for more entry-level residential, but this program would prepare people for more commercial positions. So we have a lot of things that we're looking at to expand in the adult program, but you can often take the preliminary classes as a high school student, even those that are online at this point.
I don't know if you can see my blood boiling. my blood is boiling right now when I just made the connection that adults can go be educated under our current mandates, and we have teachers there, I'm sure, teaching them, and all's going well. And yet our students,
that's true,
K through 12 cannot be at education, but adults can. I feel my blood pressure rising.
Well, we did have to go through quite a few hoops to get permission to do that. But
and I'm sure we could do that too.
But those classes that are deemed to be training essential workers and adult classes, yes, they are allowed to be in session now.
Other comments or questions?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Nancy, I want to just extend my appreciation to you for really spearheading this, because it's unbelievable to me that these other larger districts send so few students. It's a disservice to their students, because not everybody wants to go for a 4-year college degree and complete the A through D requirements. So many of the jobs are in the career technical field, and to not provide that option for students, I think, is not serving all students well, and it's treating them as if only one path exists. So thank you for really, putting these districts feet to the fire to say, are you supporting vocational education or not? Because none of us can afford to bring that back to our high schools. It's just way too expensive. So I agree with Emily Lane that having a centralized area in which that type of education can be provided to all the schools in the South Bay is such a service. So thank you, and I appreciate all your work.
Welcome.
All right, so I'm going to call for a vote on this item. Benny, your advisory vote.
Aye.
Paulette?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye. Did we make motions? Did we do that?
We did.
Okay, sorry.
We did. Yeah. Nancy?
Aye.
Aye from me. So you have our support for this resolution.
Thank you.
Next, we have another resolution, number 10 for 2020-2021, regarding sufficiency of instructional materials. Dr. Moore?
Yes, this is an annual requirement at this time of year, and it is a document that is audited. Our auditors ask for this each year, and it's to indicate that we have appropriate sufficiency of instructional materials. I recommend approval.
Motion to approve. Moved by Paulette Caudell, seconded by Tracy Miller-Zarnicki. Any discussion on this? Right. Benny, your advisory vote, please.
Aye.
Okay. Paulette?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Aye from me. So item E passes 5-0. Next, item F is an approval of change order 1 to the agreement with AMG and Associates, Inc. for the 20-002 summer modernization project. Dr. Moore.
Yes, this specific item is to do a change order with AMG to include the painting of the ceiling in the gymnasium. We had an opportunity to take board members on tours of the facility, and the board could see firsthand the chipping of the paint from the ceiling coming down on the floor, and we don't want to, make those changes and not take care of something that needs to be part of the overall maintenance of the building.
Right. Motion to approve this change order. Moved by Paulette Caudell. Seconded by Tracy Miller-Zarnicki. Any discussion on this item? I'm on the Facilities Advisory Committee, and what was interesting, we didn't know what was causing that peeling, and at first we thought maybe there was a leak, water, but evidently, no, it's just years and years of multiple coats of paint and probably not good preparation between those years of coats of paint, and so now it's peeling and probably needs to all be stripped and repainted, but once it's done, it'll be very nice and should last for a long time. All right, moving on to our voting. Benny, your advisory vote.
Aye.
Paulette?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
And Tracy?
Aye.
And aye for me. So item F is approved 5-0. Next, we have approval of Addendum 02 to the agreement with Westberg White Architecture for the El Segundo Middle School new gymnasium building project. More.
Yes, in September, we had a board meeting where we discussed the options as it related to continuing forward with the modular concept or to go with the block stick build type of construction. So the board was in favor of moving forward with the block stick, and we bring this addendum to you this evening, and I recommend approval.
All right. So motion to approve this item. Moved by Nancy Cobb, seconded by Tracy Miller-Zarnicki. Any discussion on this item? We've heard quite a bit about it, and gives us greater flexibility to provide the number of lockers that the middle school is looking for, plus additional storage for the stage, which is really helpful as well. So I think it's a great investment of our time and money. Okay, Benny, your advisory vote.
Aye.
Thank you. Paulette?
Aye.
And Nancy?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Aye from me, 5-0 to approve the addendum. Next, we have acceptance of the notice of completion of the Learning Connection at Richmond Street School project. Dr. Moore.
It is always good news when we bring to the board a notice of completion, because that means that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's to make sure that as we move forward with any other construction projects, that things are closed out properly in accordance with regulations. So although we still have an outstanding claim with Graves that we're working through, we do recommend going ahead and filing the paperwork on the notice of completion. And I just want to take a moment to really thank the board, because the Richmond Street project was really an investment in the Learning Connection. And I know how several of you really believe in providing those extended care options for our parents who work. And we have a beautiful, beautiful facility over there. And prior to COVID-19, we had hoped to do a ribbon cutting and, you know, have an open house and all of these things. And all of that kind of went by the wayside. But I look forward to the future when we can tour the facility and continue to celebrate these great additions in our school district.
Thank you. Motion to approve the notice of completion. Moved by Nancy Cobb, seconded by Paulette Caudell. Any further discussion on this besides a yay, yay? Betty, your advisory vote. Raise your hand. Oh, great. Thank you. Aye from Benny. Paulette?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
And I vote aye, so 5-0 to accept the notice of completion. Moving on to our information pending action items. Item A, well, actually, perhaps, Dr. Moore, you can talk about all three since they're board policies and administrative regulations.
Yes, I would like to talk about all three globally. These are being brought to you this evening as information pending action, and they are due to a change at the federal level, not at the state. So this is not driven by state. This is driven by the United States Department of Education, and they have made significant changes under Title IX. So that would affect both employees, and so that's why you see item 4119.11, because that deals with Dr. Ferris in the human resource area, and then also students in the 5000 series, 5145.3 and 5145.7. So these have to do with rights for the various individuals involved in issues related to sexual harassment and other due process issues. So this is just an information pending action and would be brought back to the board as action items at the next board meeting this month.
Thank you. Moving on to reports, informational calendar, Dr. Moore.
All right, for this month, as we look to this week, I would just like to remind our community that we have another PTA-sponsored candidate forum that is taking place at 4:30, and this one is being sponsored by, I believe, the middle school. And so that's 4:30 to 6 o'clock, and so you can learn more about those candidates running for school board. We also have a council PTA meeting on the 19th, a middle school PTA meeting on the 20th, and a Center Street meeting on the 21st. And then I would just like to once again emphasize, I know Benny talked about it and Frank Glenn talked about it, but only 13 more days till Skechers. So please register for the Skechers virtual walk. As has been shared in communications, this is typically well over $100,000 towards our El Segundo Ed Foundation and towards their $1.8 million pledge to the school district. So we are right now exceeding our tracking as far as how many people have signed up to date. So we encourage our community to sign up and walk virtually.
Dr. Moore, is there a link from our district website to that Skechers Walk, or how would the public sign up? You know?
Yes, the public can sign up for just Google Skechers Friendship Walk 2020, and it'll take you right there. And be sure when you sign up that you click on towards the end of your donation that you want the money or the support to go towards El Segundo Education Foundation.
Great. It seems so long ago that Tracy, you and I went to receive that check for our district, and that was always so nice, you know, because you really don't have to do anything. You don't have to physically walk if you don't want to, and this time it's all virtual, so it's easy to do. A great way to support the Education Foundation. All right. We have the financial statements from the high school ASB for your information. And then we will move on to board members' reports. So, Paulette, why don't we start with you?
Okay. Just want to say I think our district has done a superlative job of preparing for kids to come back, and we're making baby steps, but at least we're making steps. And I'm really excited about that. Also, I'd like to say that encourage the people in our community to do their civic duty. And the first civic duty would be the census count. It's really, really, really important that everybody get counted. And I think the last number was 77%, so the rest is 33%, and we're there. So please fill out your census. And then the other thing is to vote. I want to really encourage people to vote early. Wait a minute, I have it. I voted. Put your mail-in ballot in the little box on the corner of Main and Holly. Let's see. So, yes. I encourage you to do your civic duty. Oh, yes, and listen to the candidates forum next Wednesday, or I think it's Wednesday, isn't it? Wednesday, on the 15th. Thank you so much.
Right. I believe 15th is Thursday.
Thursday,
yeah.
Good job.
All right. Thank you. Nancy, why don't we hear from you next?
Thank you. I just want to thank everybody for their support of SoCal Rock. We really appreciate it. And I do want to assure parents out there that because we have been very prudent with the funds at SoCal Rock, we do have enough to maintain our programs for at least 2 more years after this year. But we are looking ahead, and there is no way to sustain beyond that unless we make some changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily?
Not much for me. I think I talked a lot tonight. I just, again, I want to reassure parents that this board is fully committed to bringing our students back safely and as soon as possible. And our administrators are spinning and spinning, doing everything the county is asking, and we will get there. I think the sports opening is wonderful, or not sports, I should say, conditioning, and that's why I just hope the community sees we really are pushing and trying. We're constantly talking about other things also as a board. So I just hope the community knows that we are trying on a lot of things. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Tracy?
Yeah, I think everything that's important in this moment that has already been said, but I'll just repeat: watch the candidates forum, get out there and vote, and do sign up for the Skechers Walk. I walked it with the whole family last year. Maybe you can do that on your own if you want to do the real thing. But at least sign up for that virtual walk, because that definitely brings us some lovely money and does a lot of other amazing things in the South Bay too. It's not just us that benefit. So do sign up for that. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you. This morning, Dr. Moore and I attended the Education Foundation board meeting, and when she talked about the waiver, I mean, immediately they said, you need a little support, let's take a vote now. It wasn't even on their agenda, but they amended their agenda so that they could take action on that and give us their vote of support. They would write that letter, and I just want to thank all the board members of the Ed Foundation for just being so supportive of everything that the district is doing. We greatly appreciate it. And also, I wanted to say that the Facilities Advisory Committee has been meeting and has been briefed on all the change orders and the plans for the construction. And I'm so grateful to the members of the community that are on that committee, because we do have some people in the construction arena, and they ask the right kinds of questions, and really concerned that we get the best value and are not taken advantage of, and really make wise decisions regarding our bond money. So I thank you to the members of that committee. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yes, I also want to thank the El Segundo Ed Foundation. It's just really heartwarming to be in a room with folks that just are like, well, what do you need? They need, and just let's take the vote, and just overwhelming support. It's just really a wonderful feeling. So we're very grateful. I also shared with the Ed Foundation, we received word this week that on the niche ratings that recently came out, our school district, El Segundo Unified, earned an A+ rating. And niche is kind of an important rating that, people will look at when they consider, where do I want to go to school? Where do I want to live? And for our school district to earn an A+ is really significant. In addition, I want to commend the high school, because they also earned an A+. And El Segundo High School was the only one of our schools that also got the A+. But Richmond Street, Center Street, and El Segundo Middle School all got a solid A. So they can strive to become an A+. So anyway, but it's nice to see, even in this time, encouraging news that the district is on the right course and we're doing the right things. So I'm very appreciative to that. In addition, just so our community and families know, we, as an administration, are in the process of reevaluating our field use and look forward to have an announcement at our next board meeting. Thank you.
Wonderful. We do not have any oral communications from any member of the audience at this time, so and we will not recess to closed session. So at 53, I am going to adjourn our meeting. Good night, everybody.